Yeah, that thing, what I said. So, my guest this week on Movies and Minutes is my friend Zach. Zach,
Hello.
how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk about some of these movies with you. They, it doesn't always line up that like the movies that I have to talk to people about like match them per se, but I feel like a lot of these just knowing what I know about you from our few interactions, I feel like these could all be movies you'd like, but we'll wait and see. We haven't had any conversations about this yet. Um, But before we get to those, I always like to start the episode by asking what type of movies you do like. What type of things will get you to the theater? Even though this is
My
a little bit cheating because I know what the last thing that got you to the theater was, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's representative of all your movie viewing desires.
I really like comedies and obviously horror movies.
Hmm.
Um, but I also like action movies if they're more like superhero-y.
Okay.
Um, but I like other action movies like Indiana Jones, like the originals and stuff like that are good too.
Hmm. Um, as far as comedies go, do you like slapstick comedies, or you like more of like a thinky humor, like like as the wheels turn, you're like, oh my God, that's really funny, and then like you like that.
I can appreciate both, but I think I'm more like slapstick.
Okay, that's totally fair. Um, who's that? There's somebody in the background.
Well, the only one that's here, I think, is BB. BB, come here.
BB, hi BB.
Come here.
Is
He's
he
all
is
over.
he here to is he here to scold you on Cass's behalf in case we get too sidetracked by lore?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hi BB. Hi Stoopy. How you doing, buddy?
I don't think anyone else is
You're famous now. We're gonna make you viral.
wanting to go.
Aw, he's a good boy.
He is.
Um, all right, so we like both kinds of comedy, but we prefer slapstick. Got it.
Mhm.
So a little bit of kind of like a little bit of everything. I mean, action, horror.
Yep.
Um, I mean, stuff that maybe just relates to your interests in general. Five Nights at Freddy's. Um, so that's fair. Is there? Well, I'll ask that later. We'll circle back to that. So we had three movies to talk about tonight. One one is definitely not slapstick funny, but I think it has like some of those like smart joke moments, and it might be the first one that we're talking about. Do you remember what that first movie is?
American Fiction.
American Fiction. Um, what did that trailer do for you? What do you think that American Fiction is about?
On I watched them twice. On
Oh,
my
nice.
first watch through, I was like trying to just like see what it was about, and
Yeah.
like it
The
didn't
second watch
occur
is
to
kind of
me.
like a little bit more of a deep dive.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't occur to me like from the beginning that was like a comedy movie until like maybe a minute in or something. So I was
Hmm.
just like sitting there like, and then it like occurred to me, and I was like, oh, this is like pretty funny.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
then
it's definitely like dark comedy because I mean there's some
mhm,
like suspense and like drama stuff, but like overall like you're sitting there going like, man, this is happening, and you're like
mhm,
cringing and laughing at the same time.
mhm. And then on my second watch through, I was like, how did I not figure out that was a comedy sooner?
Yeah. What
But
what did it make you think like in terms of plot details, like if you had to describe it to somebody, possibly me.
um well, so what I thought it was about was basically just like there's this author guy
Hmm.
who's black, and he like is a struggling author or something,
Hmm.
um and he's trying to get published, but
Hmm.
his publisher like doesn't want to publish his books because they're not like racially black enough or something like that,
Hmm.
and he wants him to like write more black stuff, and he presumably like gets drunk or something sometime and writes like a black book with like misspelled words that like is how black people would pronounce them. like
Hmm.
stereotypically. Um,
Hmm.
and then he like goes to his publisher with that or something, and
Hmm.
then his publisher actually like sells the book,
Hmm.
and basically him doing that sets him down like a rabbit hole of telling lies to like make sure
Hmm.
his like book's published, and then he like gets a movie or something. And I think it's a good way to like show that companies like prioritize like being black but not like their character or people's character, because I think that's like much more important than their like appearance or like race or whatever.
Hmm. I mean, you definitely hit a lot of the beats, and there's like it's not. I mean, he does actually drink when he's writing it, but it's definitely there are some external factors in his life that sort of like put him in a position where he's like, well, I could really like use the money from a new book.
Mhm,
And as the movie goes on, it becomes less of like a I could totally do this just for the heck of it thing,
mhm,
and I kind of need to do it.
mhm,
And it's like the need sort of outweighs the social effect it's gonna have.
mhm,
But he's he's an author and he has been published, but it's like a lot of his work is just not taken very
mhm,
seriously. And it's like serious work, like like he's like he'll write like historical stuff or things like that, and it's like shelved in like the back of the library type stuff. So he I think he kind of half wants the recognition and half needs the money. So
mhm.
um I don't want to spoil the movie totally, but have you ever seen anything like similar to this before where somebody sort of like rises up in the world, maybe monetarily, socially, whatever, through lies kind of like this?
I feel like probably a lot of politicians.
For sure. I mean, like if we're talking like real reality, I was
Yeah.
just thinking like other
Um,
movies.
Other movies.
Hmm.
I'm sure I could,
Hmm.
but none come to my mind like immediately.
Um,
Um,
the one that pops up to me first, just like in the realm of this subject, is kind of like Bruce Almighty.
yeah.
Which granted, like he also has the power behind his lies.
Mhm,
But like eventually he doesn't. So I mean, there's sort of like consequences or things kind of like change back,
mhm,
right? I don't want to spoil this, but this movie doesn't go in the same direction as a lot of films like this, like where you think to yourself, oh, well, by the end, it's all going to be like an episode of Family Guy where it's just like somebody hits the reset button.
mhm,
And I kind of think that it makes it like more desirable to watch because you're not going to get the same old,
mhm.
right? Um, do you think, knowing what you know, you'd watch something like that
Oh yeah.
or this? Yeah,
I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is something I would watch.
yeah, all right.
Yep.
Um, this one is the only one of the three that we're going to talk about tonight. It's not actually out yet. I caught it on an early release, but I
Mhm,
think it comes out December 15th. Sometimes I think they purposely stick like they'll do an early showing because they're concerned that the movie won't like do as well with like what it's stacked up against, and
mhm,
I think it's same weekend as Wonka.
mhm,
So I'm I'm not sure. I'm sure Wonka, because it's like a more well-known character, is probably gonna give it some trouble. So,
mhm.
but all right, so it's something you'd see, huh?
Yep.
Um, do you think that you'd go to the theater to see it, or do you think that this one feels like something you could wait for?
I could probably wait for it, but if somebody wanted to go, I'd go.
All right, movie pass, I got you. Um, the only thing I'll say is it's like a great like character-driven, plot-given story. Um, if you don't decide to see it in the theater, this is between you, me, and the lamppost, and I guess anybody who's watching. There's nothing about it that's a real big like theater, like you gotta go see it. Like, it's not Hulk fighting Loki like on the big screen. There's nothing on the big screen that's gonna change this one versus the small screen. So, but you didn't hear that from me because I like getting people to go to the theater. Um, on the other hand, the next one that I think we're going to talk about is sort of the polar opposite, where I think watching it at home is more detrimental. But how do you feel about kaiju's?
Growing up, I watched a lot of them, like King Kong and obviously Godzilla. And I
Mhm.
really liked like King Kong movies in general.
Mhm.
I didn't watch as many Godzilla movies, but they were always kind of like cool. My dad
Mhm.
like started me off with like the older ones, and then we kind of went towards the newer ones.
Mhm.
Um, I think I really like King Kong's story, so I can like kind of tolerate that a bit more. But with Godzilla, it's kind of like a bit more boring to me or something.
That's
Um,
totally fair. Yeah.
so it doesn't like hold up as much as King Kong.
Right. Well, so if anybody hasn't figured it out yet, the next one that we're going to talk about is there's a new Godzilla movie that technically came out. It came out Friday. Yeah. So what did that trailer do for you? Aside from the feelings regarding, Godzilla versus Kong, what did you think about the trailer for
I
its
thought
Godzilla minus one? Yeah.
I always think like Godzilla's like a really cool design character and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Watching the trailer, it kind of just like reminded me of like other Godzilla movies and
Mhm.
kind of didn't grab me as much as like other movies would.
Okay.
Just because it's like kind of looks like the same sort of thing that's like came out before. Um, so yeah.
Any like specific like plot stuff that popped out at you, or just monsters? Yeah, well, monster,
Um,
doing monster stuff.
when I was first watching it, like I didn't really pick up on like much plot stuff
Mhm.
besides just like Godzilla because he kind of just steals the show.
Did-
I like looked it up what it was about because I was like, does it do anything like different than anything else? And like I saw that it takes place like post World War II or something, which I
Mhm.
think might be a little bit interesting to explore, but yeah.
So you're right. It does. It's like literally tail end of World War II. No pun intended with the tail. Um, my thing about Godzilla, and I can kind of understand like the maybe he doesn't always catch the like appeal thing. I think for me the reason that might not happen sometimes is he kind of confuses me.
Mhm,
He Sometimes he's a friend, sometimes he's a foe. You don't really know where his allegiances lie. Like sometimes he cares about like the safety of people when there's other monsters involved, and sometimes he is the monster and he doesn't care about atomic breathing people. It's kind of hard to like get into him when I don't really get his motivation.
mhm,
Um, this one is really cool though. It's a subbed movie and it's set in world, post World War II Japan. And there's like a story following a human, like he comes home from the war and he's kind of a disgraced kamikaze pilot because,
mhm,
well, if you're a successful kamikaze pilot, you don't come home. So people aren't happy that he came home because they know that he was a pilot and that he was supposed to die and he turned tail and he ran. And he's kind of got like something to prove. He's trying to like prove that he's got some reason to like still live. And then Godzilla shows up, and Godzilla is like the antagonist. Like he's just fire breathing on people, killing people. He's just rampaging destruction. And I feel like in some of his movies, it's he does that, but then he turns around and he helps like save the people, and
mhm,
that's not the case with this one, you know. So it's literally people versus Godzilla. So I mean, like if you like feudal, well, it's not feudal Japan, but like if you like past history Japan and you like big monsters doing monster things, it could definitely be an appealing movie. I mean, the visuals were great. Um, I guess it all depends on how much you like. If a 2 hour movie with like monsters against people in another language does it for you.
mhm.
If like you like Japanese cultural stuff, if you like if you like cheeky acting and dialogue that you could tell they were trying to mirror a lot of the older Godzilla movies, but like with modern graphics.
I don't know if I'd like it. I think if somebody wanted to see it with me, I would reluctantly go.
Reluctantly, okay.
I don't think I would like go and see it because I'd want to.
That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, like, maybe in some weird cathartic way, like I'm not saying whether Godzilla wins or loses, but obviously people and monsters get hurt when they're fighting each other, so you might enjoy the parts where the people are beating up on Godzilla. Um, I will say that because it's a giant monster and like the movie was filmed in IMAX, it looks beautiful on the big screen. I think that this one definitely would lose something, when it's like shrunk down. Um, but movies are shrunk down all the time and people still watch them, so it's not like the end of the world. But definitely, I think of the three that we are going to talk about or are talking about, it's the one that I would recommend the most for the big screen.
Mhm.
Um, so that's Godzilla, and you said you'd watch it, but reluctantly. So if
Mhm.
somebody else was like, "Let's go," and you're like, "Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha." So we got one left. What was our last movie?
Dream Scenario.
Dream Scenario. All right. So, before I ask you about the trailer for Dream Scenario, you said before that you're a fan of horror.
Mhm.
What uh, what comes to mind when I say A24?
Um, Honestly, not a lot because I am not very like familiar with like studios or whatever,
Okay.
but I it's somewhat familiar, but I just don't know like what it's from at all.
A24 is slowly building themselves a reputation for like being like the out there studio. Like they will tackle projects that other people don't want to. A lot of their best work in the last couple of years is horror, but it's not strictly horror. Much like the fact that this movie is not horror, but it's definitely like one I'm sure when the idea was passed around the bigger studios, they're like, "What? What is this? No." And then A24 was like, "Yes, give it to us." Um, what what did that plot look like? And I'm real curious on this one because I mean, like even me going into it, I was just like, "What the heck am I about to watch?"
My first watch through of the trailer, I was like, people have dreams about Nicolas Cage for some reason, and he becomes like famous or something. And I
But
watched it again.
it's not just regular Nicolas Cage. It's like the most boring narcissistic version of him where he's got like the I think there's a word for it. It's like widow's peak or something where you've got the bald on top and the hair on the sides.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Um, then I like watched it again,
Hmm.
and like I was like, okay, so it like kind of follows his character and like him becoming famous for like a weird thing, and then like what happens to him kind of.
Hmm.
Um, Other than that, I didn't get a lot. It kind of reminded me of Army of One, which was another Nicolas Cage film. And it like follows the story of a guy who like tried to go and like kill Osama bin Laden by himself.
Oh, okay.
That was a funny movie too.
I will have to check that one out. I haven't seen that one. I'm like 50-50 on Nick Cage. Like the stuff I've seen of him I've liked, but I haven't seen all his stuff.
Mhm.
Um, this movie reminded me, and if you haven't seen it, I totally get it. It was a real trippy movie last year. It was called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I heard about that one, but I didn't see it.
So it came out like a week or 2 weeks before Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, except it did multiverse stuff way better.
Mhm.
Um, eh, I can't really describe it. Suffice it to say, it's just really trippy. Like all the different things that you could imagine across the multiverse, like in a movie, kind of happen. I mean, at one point, like they're in a reality with people who've got like hot dogs for fingers, and it's just totally normal. And it's yeah. So like people are having different kinds of dreams about Nicolas Cage's character in this movie. His name is oh God, it's Paul. Paul in the movie is his character's name. And it's just totally innocuous and it starts out with his daughter, then students, then old friends, then total strangers, and he's just like walking by in the train. Somebody's like in the middle of the street, holding somebody that just got like hit by a car, and then Nicolas Cage is just like walking by, and it's just like like the trippy things that are happening in these dreams that Nicolas Cage is just sort of present for. And you're right, he becomes famous for it kind of overnight. And we kind of got to ask ourselves, a, I mean, like they never, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, they never quite explain the reason why this happens. And I guess that's kind of okay. You don't always need a 100% answer. But the people like liking him for just this thing that he has no control over. Imagine how people would act if they have the opposite opinion. Like, what if people start treating him differently in a bad way for, again, something he has no control over?
Mhm.
Like, what if somebody got upset that, like, you know, their wife was dreaming about Nicolas Cage, and they're like, they want to beat him up because, like,
Mhm.
he showed up in their wife's dream, and they're like, he's like, well, I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here eating my breakfast. Leave me
Mhm.
alone. And it's sort of like this weird progression of, like, almost like accountability,
Mhm.
like the things that we make people accountable for in society, and how sometimes, like, they may or may not have control over that. Like, it definitely is like a thinker, but you're also like watching all the trippy weird things happen. Like, it at a certain point in the film, it shifts from him just being there innocuously to him doing things in the dreams, and
Mhm.
society's reception to that um changes accordingly.
Mhm.
um Trippy can be funny in its own way, but also there's like suspense moments, there's like drama moments. I mean, it's a little bit of everything, and then it's just sort of like the random haphazard moments where you're kind of just like, is this another dream that we're seeing, or is this like reality?
Mhm.
Um, does that sound like something that would appeal to you?
I think I would see it if somebody asked me to,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't necessarily like go and seek it out. It's like a maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not like against seeing it, but like I'm not like gun ho to like go and see it or something.
Okay.
Um, is there a cult that follows him? Because I feel like that would be really funny if like people just started seeing him as a messiah for just showing up in everyone's street.
I mean, in so much as like social media feels cult like sometimes when we deify like people on it for being
Mhm.
here versus down here.
Mhm.
In that sense, kind of. Um, there, hmm, I there is a sequence that's like with one person in particular, like where he's with this person and they kind of want him to fulfill what he did in the dream, but in real life.
Mhm.
And I guess in a way that's almost like somebody that would have like a cult like mentality, yeah, because I mean they're like they they feel so strongly about what happened in the dream that they want it to happen in reality, like kind of makes you worry about like the lengths to which they would go.
Mhm.
Um, but you'd have to see it and find that out. It's just kind of freaky. Um, this one kind of is like American fiction also, where like there's not like a reset button at the end of the movie per se. Like, the moments and the actions that have consequences don't get swept under the rug at the end, which
Mhm.
I'm happier that more movies are doing. It's we've seen enough movies where it's like, oh no, this bad thing happened, but we got past it. And now everything's back to normal at the end, and
Mhm.
yay! Like, it's fun to not be stuck in a formula.
Mhm.
That one's a maybe. Godzilla's a maybe. American Fiction seemed like the one that you leaned the most towards
Yep.
of those three. All right. Um, Circling back to something I was going to ask you at the beginning, do you have anything that you're looking forward to specifically movie wise? Like stuff that you're like
Um,
kind of like with Freddy's, like, before that came out, you knew you wanted to see that.
well, a sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's has been like officially announced or something.
This is
So
true. That one
that
I
in the
would put in the
future.
category of like long-term
Hmm.
interest, only because it's like, that's probably just
Hmm.
like in the being written on paper stage right
Hmm.
now.
Um, Wonka would be interesting because I really liked those movies growing up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'm interested in seeing like where they take this origin, and
mhm,
kind of just curious how we handle like 100 Oompa Loompas on screen, all with Hugh Grant's face.
mhm.
All
Uh,
right. So yeah, any others?
and I think the MCU is coming out with like phase four movies or something like that. Like Spider-Man, I heard might be in there. Um,
I know they're in the talking stage on Spider-Man. So next year is actually going to be a real quiet Marvel year. We get one movie. It's Deadpool
yeah.
3.
Oh, I was just about to say Deadpool 3, I really want to see.
I do plan on doing an event for that, so
Mhm,
that should be fun. Um, but that's about 6 months out. All right. So you got Wonk on the in the back pocket because that guy comes out in like a week or two. So
mhm,
that's something to look forward to.
mhm.
All right. Any I was gonna say there's a couple of good horror ones coming out too that you might want to check out trailers for just for the heck of it. There's one called Night Swim,
Mhm.
which is in January,
Ooh, yep.
and then there's another one called Imaginary, which is in March, and it's they're both Blumhouse,
Mhm.
but Imaginary's like, you know, the creatures that we think are like imaginary friends are like really like maybe demons or monsters. I'm not 100% sure. I actually saw the trailer for that for the first time tonight, so
Mhm.
but we'll see where that goes. Um, any lore dumps of anything you want to share with us before we go?
All right, so in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, no, I'm
Oh man, I was really
joking.
hoping Cass was gonna bust through the door after that. Mm.
If she heard me, she probably would have.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess the next time we hang out, we'll make that happen so we can so you can further my Five Nights at Freddy's information, and so we can make her, drive her up a wall.
Mhm. Sounds like fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a guest. This is it, man. We're done.
All right,
Um,
thanks for having me.
yeah, I appreciate it. I always appreciate all my guests that come on. Again, this has been Movies and Minutes, guys. This is our 40th episode. 40. So thanks for joining us, Zach, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.